Most legendary sports cars are born because manufacturers dream of building something extraordinary. The BMW E30 M3 was born because accountants, engineers, and racing regulations all wanted completely different things. During the mid-1980s, BMW had no intention of creating a compact performance icon that enthusiasts would still worship decades later. The company's objective was far simpler, and far more ruthless. It wanted to win races. Specifically, it wanted to dominate the fiercely competitive world of Group A touring car racing, where manufacturers battled not only for trophies but for engineering prestige and global recognition. There was just one problem. The rules required every race car to be based on a production vehicle, and manufacturers had to build thousands of road-going examples before they could even enter the championship. For BMW Motorsport, this wasn't an opportunity. It was an obligation. They needed to build a road car only because the rulebook forced them to. Nobody expected that requirement would accidentally create one of the greatest drivers' cars in automotive history. To understand why the E30 M3 became something much larger than a homologation special, we first need to understand the world that created it. During the early 1980s, touring car racing had exploded in popularity across Europe. Unlike Formula One, where purpose-built prototypes shared almost nothing with ordinary road cars, Group A placed manufacturers in direct competition using machines that still resembled the vehicles sitting in dealership showrooms. Fans could watch BMWs, Mercedes-Benzes, Fords, and Alfa Romeos fighting wheel-to-wheel on Sunday, then walk into a dealership on Monday and buy something that looked remarkably similar. Winning these championships meant more than collecting trophies. It proved engineering superiority in front of millions of potential customers. BMW Motorsport, founded only a little over a decade earlier, already understood the value of racing better than almost anyone. The company had enjoyed success with the legendary 3.0 CSL and other competition programs, but by the middle of the decade a new rival had emerged. Mercedes-Benz was preparing the 190e February 3, 16, another homologation special developed specifically to conquer touring car racing. Suddenly, BMW found itself facing a serious threat. Losing on the racetrack meant losing part of the brand's identity. Motorsport wasn't simply advertising, it had become the foundation of BMW's reputation. Engineers led by Paul Rausch didn't respond by making the standard 3 Series slightly faster. They practically reinvented it. Almost every exterior body panel changed. The dramatically widened fenders weren't designed to impress customers, they existed to accommodate wider racing wheels and improve aerodynamics. The front windshield became more steeply bonded to reduce lift. The rear window angle changed. A taller trunk lid and distinctive rear spoiler improved high-speed stability. Even the C-pillars and rear deck received subtle aerodynamic revisions. Surprisingly little sheet metal remained shared with the ordinary E30. Personally, I think that's what makes the M3 so fascinating. Most manufacturers start with a road car and then adapt it for racing. BMW essentially built the race car first, then created a road version capable of satisfying homologation requirements. Every modification had one purpose, making the competition car faster. Nothing was added simply because it looked exciting. That philosophy continued beneath the hood. Many expected BMW to install one of its famous inline-six engines. Instead, motorsport engineers made a decision that initially confused almost everyone. They developed a naturally aspirated 2.3-liter four-cylinder known as the S14. At first glance, choosing 4 cylinders instead of 6 seemed like a step backward for a company famous for silky smooth straight-six engines. But once again, racing dictated every decision. The shorter, lighter engine improved weight distribution, reduced mass over the front axle, and allowed the chassis to react more quickly during aggressive cornering. Even more importantly, the S14 loved revs. Derived from BMW's Formula One knowledge and closely related to the larger M88 engine architecture, it produced remarkable performance through precision rather than displacement. It wasn't the loudest engine of its generation. It wasn't the most powerful either. But it delivered exactly what racing engineers wanted: instant throttle response, exceptional reliability, and a willingness to spin toward redline lap after lap. Before the first customer ever drove an E30 M3 on public roads, BMW already knew exactly what it had built. This wasn't another sporty coupe. It was a homologation weapon disguised as a production automobile. The only question remaining was whether it could dominate the racetrack the way its engineers believed it would. And the answer would exceed even BMW's wildest expectations. When the BMW E30 M3 finally arrived on racetracks, it became immediately obvious that BMW Motorsport had achieved exactly what it had set out to do. This wasn't simply another fast touring car competing among equals. It was a machine engineered with an almost obsessive attention to detail, and that attention began producing results almost instantly. While rival manufacturers often relied on larger engines or greater straightline speed, the M3 attacked corners with a level of balance that seemed almost unfair. It changed direction effortlessly, carried remarkable speed through technical sections, and inspired extraordinary confidence in the hands of experienced drivers. On paper, some competitors looked more powerful. On the stopwatch, very few could keep up. Personally, I think that's one of the greatest lessons the E30 M3 ever taught the automotive world. Racing isn't won by horsepower alone. It's won by building a car where every component works toward the same objective. The engine, suspension, steering, aerodynamics, brakes, and chassis all spoke the same language. Nothing fought against anything else. The car felt cohesive, predictable, and alive. Its naturally aspirated S14 engine became one of the defining characteristics of the M3. Unlike the turbocharged monsters beginning to appear elsewhere, the BMW demanded commitment. Maximum performance lived high in the rev range, rewarding drivers willing to keep the engine singing near redline. Every perfectly timed gear change brought the car closer to its ideal operating window, creating a driving experience that felt incredibly mechanical and deeply satisfying. There were no electronic shortcuts, no artificial torque boosts, and no software masking mistakes. The driver remained the most important performance component. The suspension reflected exactly the same philosophy. Engineers didn't chase comfort or luxury. Every bushing, every spring, every damper, and every suspension arm existed to maximize precision. Steering inputs felt immediate, body roll remained tightly controlled, and weight transfer happened progressively enough to let drivers explore the car's limits with remarkable confidence. Even today, decades later, many enthusiasts describe the E30 M3 as one of the purest handling cars BMW has ever produced. But engineering alone doesn't create legends. Results do. And the E30 M3 delivered results on a scale almost nobody had ever witnessed before. Across Europe, the BMW began collecting victories with astonishing consistency. In the Deutsche Tourenwagen Meisterschaft, better known as DTM, it quickly established itself as one of the benchmark touring cars of the era. But the success didn't stop in Germany. The M3 conquered the British Touring Car Championship, the European Touring Car Championship, and numerous national series across the continent. Wherever regulations allowed it to compete, the BMW usually found itself fighting for victory. Then came something even more remarkable. The M3 proved it wasn't limited to smooth racing circuits. BMW engineers adapted the platform for rally competition, where the combination of balance, durability, and responsive handling made it surprisingly effective on gravel, asphalt, and mixed surfaces. Victories in events such as the Tour de Corse demonstrated that the car's engineering excellence wasn't tied to one specific discipline. Whether attacking apexes on permanent circuits or sliding between mountain cliffs during rally stages, the E30 M3 remained extraordinarily competitive. Very few performance cars in history have succeeded across so many completely different forms of motorsport. That versatility became one of its greatest strengths. By the early 1990s, the list of achievements had become almost unbelievable. The E30 M3 accumulated well over 1,000 race victories around the world, making it one of the most successful touring cars ever built. Some historians place the total even higher when national championships and endurance events are included. Championships came one after another. Drivers' titles. Manufacturers' titles. Endurance victories. Sprint victories. Hill climbs. Rally wins. The trophies seemed endless. And perhaps that's the strongest evidence of the car's brilliance. It didn't dominate because of one extraordinary driver. It dominated because the engineering itself was extraordinary. Whether the car was driven by experienced factory professionals or talented private teams, it remained consistently competitive. That kind of success cannot be explained by luck. It can only be explained by fundamentally brilliant design. BMW wasn't the only company trying to win Group A racing. Mercedes-Benz fought back with the increasingly sophisticated 190e Evolution models. Ford introduced the Sierra RS Cosworth. Alfa Romeo, Audi, and others invested enormous resources into the same championships. Every manufacturer understood that victory meant prestige. Yet season after season, the E30 M3 continued proving why it had been engineered so differently from the very beginning. Ironically, the car that BMW had originally built only to satisfy homologation rules ended up redefining what a homologation special could become. Customers no longer saw it as a road car derived from a race machine. They saw it as a genuine race car that happened to be legal enough for public roads. That reputation spread far beyond Europe. Enthusiasts around the world began viewing the E30 M3 not simply as another member of the 3 Series family, but as the purest expression of BMW Motorsport itself. The famous tricolor stripes, the box-flared fenders, the screaming 4-cylinder engine, and the razor-sharp handling all combined to create something larger than the original project ever intended. BMW had entered Group A hoping to win championships. Instead, it accidentally created the blueprint for every M3 that would follow. The BMW E30 M3 was never created to become an icon. It wasn't designed to impress collectors, dominate social media, or sell in enormous numbers. From the very beginning, it existed for one reason and one reason only: to satisfy a racing rulebook. Without Group A homologation requirements, there's a very real chance the E30 M3 would have never existed at all. Ironically, that obligation became one of the greatest gifts BMW Motorsport ever gave the automotive world. What started as a technical necessity evolved into a machine that would define an entire generation of performance cars. Looking back today, it's remarkable how little of the E30 M3 was shaped by marketing. Every widened fender, every aerodynamic surface, every suspension component, and every engineering decision had already been justified on the racetrack before customers ever walked into a dealership. This wasn't a family coupe wearing aggressive bodywork. It was a competition car wearing license plates. Personally, I think that's why the E30 M3 still feels so special nearly 40 years later. It never pretended to be something it wasn't. It didn't rely on overwhelming horsepower, luxury equipment, or complicated electronics to create excitement. Instead, it trusted balance, precision, lightweight engineering, and the connection between driver and machine. Every kilometer reminded you that this car had learned its lessons on race circuits, not in marketing meetings. Few automobiles have ever dominated motorsport the way the E30 M3 did. With victories across DTM, the British Touring Car Championship, the European Touring Car Championship, endurance racing, hill climbs, and even rally competition, it built a record that remains almost impossible to match. More than 1,000 victories around the world transformed the M3 from a successful homologation special into what many historians still consider the most successful touring car ever built. But perhaps its greatest achievement wasn't measured by trophies. It was measured by influence. Every M3 that followed, from the E36 and E46 to today's high-performance generations, exists because the original E30 proved what the motorsport division was capable of achieving. It established the philosophy that continues to define every true M car: engineering before marketing, balance before brute force, and driver involvement above everything else. Even today, when modern performance cars produce twice the horsepower and rely on technology unimaginable in the 1980s, enthusiasts continue returning to the E30 M3. Not because it's the fastest, but because it reminds us of something increasingly rare. A great driver's car isn't created by chasing numbers. It's created by chasing perfection. That's why values continue to climb, collectors compete for the best examples, and racing fans still celebrate the unmistakable silhouette of those box-shaped fenders. The E30 M3 isn't remembered simply because it won championships. It's remembered because it changed BMW forever. It transformed a small motorsport division into one of the most respected performance brands in the world and proved that sometimes the greatest legends are born completely by accident. BMW set out to build a race car that could legally compete. Instead, it built one of the greatest driver's cars in automotive history. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more stories about the world's most legendary automobiles. Every subscription helps the channel continue bringing these incredible automotive stories back to life. And now I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you believe the E30 M3 is still the greatest M car BMW has ever built, or has another generation earned that title? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next documentary.